Hey guys, it's your host, MD Lovelace, coming to you live from Graceland. You're watching the Scotty Sports Show. All right, everybody, welcome back to a brand new edition of the Scotty Sports Show. I'm your host, MD Lovelace.
Jeff Bryce.
Hey, Jeff. So this week we are talking about a story of an athlete kind of turning his life away from the sport itself and going a different route. So today joining us is going to be Beau Payne, former Major League Baseball prospect that had every opportunity to make it to the big leagues and decide to kind of make other choices. So we're going to bring on Beau here in just a minute. But pretty cool story to kind of read about and listen to some of his other interviews we've done. And really need a Beau to say, hey, man, anything goes. We'll talk about whatever. I got nothing to hide, nothing to kind of shy away from. So that's kind of a nice tribute to the show. And guys kind of understand, like, hey, this is an all-out forum and go nuts with what you got to say.
Yeah, he seems like he's a pretty open guy, just some chatting through him with a messenger. He's open to anything. I mean, it seems like he has nothing to hide, just wants to talk. So We'll see how it goes.
All right, so here we go. We're going to bring Beau on right now.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how we doing? So everybody joining us right now, Beau Payne. Beau, thanks for coming on with me and Jeff today.
Yeah, no problem.
So, Beau,
right, yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. Yeah.
It was cool talking all week. We were talking before we brought you on here, Jeff and I, a little bit of kind of the background story on your story itself and the excitement that you kind of have and the urge to want to share that with others and how awesome that is, because you get so many guys that have made the kind of bonehead decisions, but never want to own up to it. They're out to blame everybody else or whatever. So it's cool to have something that's, embracing that fact that, hey, man, I made some mistakes, but I want to help others learn from that. So I think that's a huge homage to you on that.
Thank you. Thanks, MD. I appreciate it. And thanks, Jeff, too.
No problem.
That's a huge thing with me, to be honest with you. I spent a lot of years pointing the finger at other people and saying, I did this because you guys made me do this. And my poor behaviors were a result of what others did to me. And we don't do victimhood in my family anymore. My mom always says we don't say what if, we say what is, and we live for today, man, and just make the best of it. And when I kind of grew up, for lack of a better word, and did some serious introspection or inner thinking about where I was, what I've done, and where I want to go, I realized that my problems really, even because my story is a little gnarly and stuff that's happened to me in the past, my stories are my problems were of my own doing. And then I took action and started to change them, man, plain and simple. So if that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think biggest thing of all is, like you said, making the learn from it and kind of going from there. So why don't we just start from the top, Beau? Tell us a little bit about kind of your history, your background. And I mean, we're going to leave the floor open to you, man. It's your story to tell, and we'll kind of jump in.
Okay. Yeah. If you guys want to jump in and, kind of ask questions or whatever, but I'll just kind of tell you, I guess, start to end. I'll be 48 in a couple months. I'm a recovering alcoholic and an addict, and I've been clean and sober almost 5 years, which is the longest that I've been clean and sober since I was probably 10 or 11 years old, to be honest with you guys. And a lot of the way my life kind of ended up down the road is a direct result of some of the things that did happen to me and my actions. And I'll get into that stuff. But I'm born in Tennessee. I'm a Tennessean. I love the state, but I wasn't raised there. Had a lot of my dad was a Vietnam veteran. He was an infantry officer in Vietnam and came back before I was born. I was born in 1973, but he brought a lot of baggage back back home with them. He was wounded over there, went through some awful times. So I feel for him. But he brought back a lot of violence and a lot of dysfunction and just a lot of insanity into my mother's life, and then which directly led into my life as I was a young child. He was a good athlete in high school. I think he ran track at Oregon, to be honest with you. Didn't make it, went in the Army, then went to officer candidate school, then went to Vietnam and came back. And he ended up getting a graduate degree from a master's from Vanderbilt. So he's an educated guy. Just to kind of set the tone for things, my mom went to Tulane, has her degree from Tulane, great schools. I have a a GED from an Idaho State penitentiary. And I'll kind of get into that as far as, I got into college and other things. I had good SAT scores and things like that in the military. But so he brought back a lot of violence and dysfunction in the house. And so that was kind of the norm growing up. I have a younger sister. She's 43, so she's 4 or 5 years younger than me. She's the head coach for the University of Colorado Lady Buffaloes. So she's an NCAA D1 coach, and she's my best friend in the world, and she's been through everything with me. So I love her, man. I don't have enough superlatives to say about her. And she's a fantastic coach too. So I'm really proud of her. She's turned that program around. They actually beat Stanford this year.
What sport is she coaching over there?
College basketball, women's hoops.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes, and they beat Stanford this year in Pac-12 play, who ended up winning the national title. So it was kind of cool. Wow. But my mom, I think we were living in New Orleans when I was 4, and my mom had just said, hey, this is enough's enough with all the craziness and the dysfunctional kind of stuff that was going on. And so my dad, they ended up divorcing. My dad moved to Dallas, and I moved to Dallas with my dad. And that's when I started to become involved in sports a little bit, maybe probably age 4, closer to 5-ish, around there, T-ball, stuff like that. And, and I was always a real good athlete, had a lot of ability, and my dad coached my teams. So fast forward a couple of years till I was probably 6 years old, 6 or 7. And for some reason, my parents decided to remarry my mom and my dad. So everybody loves my mom. She's the greatest person on earth. We all love our mothers, so we all think that, our moms are the greatest, but she truly is a wonderful woman. And so we ended up moving up to Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada for something to do with my father's work. And I was probably 6, 7, and was heavily into sports by then, football, flag football, hoops, basketball. Started skating, in Canada, playing hockey, which was tons of fun, playing pond hockey, frozen pond hockey in the winter and stuff like that. So, but my dad was the coach of all my teams. So he had expectations of me, obviously. And I understand that. But the lengths to which he took things in my life are a big part of why I've come to realize why I had the life I had. And again, it's not a victimhood statement at all. It's just understanding what abuse can do to children, and how we carry it for so long. And so I'll give you guys a couple examples of kind of what went on. So say I was probably 8 years old, and this happened on the regular basis. I'd go 3 for 4 or 4 for 5 at a game. Two homers, 2 jacks, 2 doubles, and maybe I struck out my 5th at bat. So I'm thinking, man, that's not bad, There's 5 or 6 ribbies on the ledger and a couple jacks. And my dad would take me home and beat I won't drop, cuss words on here, but beat the living hell out of me at age 8. I mean, like closed fists and throwing me into walls and for the strikeout. And I'm thinking, well, I just went 4 for 5 with 2 jacks, couple doubles. We won the game, and I struck out my 5th AB, and I'm getting the living crap kicked out of me, and I'm not understanding it because I'm 8 years old and I can't comprehend things like that. So, that is just one of hundreds of incidents like that. And I guess I can get into a couple other ones, but to be honest with you guys, as my life went forward, the physical stuff became acceptable to me because I just learned to be tough, and I learned to accept that this is the way it is. And there's a difference between having your butt spanked and yelled at and said, hey, then being punched in the face and thrown in walls as an 8-year-old child. And that stuff doesn't fly. I don't care who you are. And
sorry if you don't mind me interrupting.
No, go ahead.
What ended up being hidden from school for so long?
It was, yeah, good question. There were a lot of bruises on me, occasional black eyes, stuff like that. Not a lot. My dad was very intimidating, and he was very manipulative, and he was smooth, and people were either A, afraid of him, or B, really admired him because he didn't know what was going on. And if they did know what was going on, we're afraid to say something to him because he had some powerful friends. I don't want to say powerful, but some influential type people that he knew through his business. He was a businessman. And the bottom line is people didn't question him. He was the coach of all the teams that I played on. And, God bless my mom's heart and a few people who knew. My mom didn't really know the extent of a lot of the stuff that went on because their relationship was so fractured, and they ended up divorcing again, as I moved into when I was probably 11 or so. So that kind of stuff went on. But like I was saying, MD and Jeff, the mental and the verbal stuff, took a toll on me for years and years and years. And his MO would always be, you embarrassed me. You embarrassed me in front of these people. You embarrassed me in front of the people in the stands. And I'm thinking, well, I'm 8 or 9 years old. This isn't really a big, important game. It's not Game 7 of the World Series, for crying out loud. It's Little League baseball or Pop Warner football. And it didn't matter. I could throw 4 touchdowns and I, maybe throw a pick or fumble. I'll tell you guys another, and I've shared this before, and this is kind of one that stuck out with me. If you don't mind indulging me on this one. I vividly remember this when I was 12 years old, and then I'll get off the stuff with my dad. But I was 12 years old playing, probably 7th grade hoops. And I was working on some different moves, I was a shooting guard, point guard, but I was a young guy. I was working on some spin moves and bringing the ball up the court, and it was experimental stuff as a kid. And I had the ball swiped for me a couple times. I think I turned it over, made a couple bad passes, bounced it off my foot, went out of bounds, something like that. So halftime, he takes me across the street to a gas station. And you remember those old, they're not so much anymore, but those old men's stand-up urinals where you could stand like 4 to, and they all had water coming down, and they had those little blue urinal cakes in them. Well, he would flush the urinal, and he would take the back, and this is when I had hair, I was a child, and he would jam my head into these urinals full of urine and urinal cakes, and he would bring me up and say, why are you doing this? You're embarrassing me again. He's like, haven't you learned what I've taught you in the front yard, the hoop in the front, or front of our house. And so long story short, this is just normal stuff. And so I go back, play the second half, got a little bit of a split lip. My hair's a mess. I'm wet. I'm covered in like blue urinal cake. And I laugh about it now because it's not an issue with me anymore. But on my orange uniform, my grade school was called Maplewood Elementary, and our colors were orange still. And I think I had, 18, 20, 22 in the second half. So I had a good second half, but I never forget that, and that was the only time he ever did that gas station thing to me. But a lot of other stuff, coming home from tournaments in the middle of the night, 20 miles outside of home at 11 p.m., he kicked me out of the car age 9, 10, 11, and say, find your own effing way home, and I'm like, well, I'm 10, so I don't drive. It's pitch black. I'm on the side of the, no cell phones, and he's hitting me and he's yelling at me, and it's just a maniac. And I feel sorry for the man, to be honest with you. But guys, that kind of set the tone for a lot of the stuff that I try to share with other guys and gals, men and women these days that may have terrible anxiety, or, you can never judge somebody by how they look on the outside. We never know how somebody's feeling on the inside, and it honestly killed me for a long time, for years. And I slowly, that led me into my insecurities and my fears about myself and my failings. Led me into drugs and alcohol at a pretty early age, just to kind of cover up a lot of the stuff that was going on. So that's kind of the early beginnings. If you guys want to jump in, or you want me to continue? Or
yeah, how does how do you even look at your dad in the face? We've all had our issues with our parents, but my dad trying to jack me up. At what point do you finally just break loose and whoop back on dad, saying, "All right, dude, I'm grown"? How do you?
Yeah. So there was an incident. Well, that's in the story too. And this is another one. I was 15, I think, and I'm 6'4" right now. And my back issues. I'm 6'3". I've shrunk a little bit with the arthritis over the years, but I've been 6'4" since I was probably 15, and I didn't grow after that, as far as height wise. And I was getting bigger, man. And I was, you guys know how it is when you're getting 15, 16 years old, you're growing into a man, so I was out in the garden, where we were living in our house, and, raking, or picking weeds, and which is fine. All kids do that. And I see the look on his face, and I'm like, oh God, I've seen this look before. So here he comes, storming out the door. And apparently I had picked a rosebud instead of a weed. And that was the catalyst for all hell to break loose. How dare you destroy this garden? I've worked so hard on it and all this stuff. And I'm like, and by this time I'm cognizant of what's going on in my life, and I'm a little more, I can comprehend things more, and I'm big, I'm not big, but I'm 6'4", about, and heavier. And he came at me, and I said, you try one thing with me one more time. And I said, you're finished. And I don't even, it was like something took over my body and came out and said that, and he came at me, and I put him down, man, right? And I said, you ever try that stuff with me again, man, it'll be the last time that you ever walk this earth, dude. And he never messed with me again. And I think I was not quite 16 then. So
did that kind of change things as far as like your whole dynamic moving forward with him? I mean, did he ever get to the point where the apology came out? I mean, have you ever had that kind of peace of mind with your dad now since that? I mean, tell us a little more about that.
That's a great question. So I haven't talked to my father in, I want to say 13, 14 years. He lives overseas. He's retired. He's lived in South America, and he lives in Montenegro now. I mean, I don't know. I don't even care what he does. He's, retired. Over the years, we've had a lot of, because I still loved my dad at this time, even though everything that he did to me, I don't know why, looking back on it, but I think kids, that's just something I don't think that I'm ever going to be able to adequately explain. But, so I always felt the need for his approval, even though the things he was doing to me. So I would always initiate in my younger years, or my younger 20s, or say mid 20s, reach out to him and say, Dad, I'm sorry that I was a tough kid to have, and stuff like this. And then he would always accept my apology, but nothing in return, nothing reciprocated, and where I am now as a man today, I realize that when I make amends to people for things that I've done to people, I don't expect anything in return, even if it's deserved. It's not about that. It's about me making amends to other people and letting it go. So probably from age 25 to on and off to 35, my dad and I had a working relationship to where I worked for him on and off. I spent a lot of years I had a real double life going. I was a mortgage broker in Bellevue, Seattle, Washington, which is a pretty real nice ritzy area. I did well for myself. Worked for him as a corporate recruiter, is what he did for a long time. And then I would go off the reservation and not be seen for 6, 7, 8 months, and end up being found, under bridges with, not to get too graphic, but I was an IV drug user and a crack cocaine addict. And I would go from having everything to losing everything in a matter of weeks, at the most. So I would go to rehab at the VA or an inpatient civilian hospital. Instead of, family day showing up, he'd show up with a suit and say, "Are you ready to go to work?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I'm ready to go back." And then then the pattern repeated itself. So it wasn't until I started doing a lot of work on myself, and this led to a lot of trouble that I eventually got into and went to the penitentiary a couple times and stuff like that. So to answer your question, we don't have a relationship today. I've made my amends to him. He's a non-entity in my life. Good for him for whatever he's doing, but I just do my best to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen to other kids, because I know that the emotional scars last forever, and I don't want to see anybody.
Did this ever carry into any of your other siblings at all, or was it just you that this kind of seemed to be an issue with? I mean, obviously now as you've gotten older and closer to your sister, I mean, did she know about any of this stuff as well growing up, or was this kind of like you said, an isolated thing away from it?
She really didn't know, because my parents were split again when I was probably 12. And so my sister was more with my mom and I was kind of more with my dad. And, so she didn't suffer any abuse at all. Thank God, she was always, and I say this in a good way. She was the golden child. She had great grades. She went full ride anywhere she wanted to go to play basketball. She ended up going to St. Mary's in California, in a West Coast conference. Good basketball school. She, had a good upbringing, straight 4.0, the whole deal. I think she played a little bit in Portugal or signed to go to Portugal and play over there. Blew her knee out, and then ended up coming back and starting her coaching career at Gonzaga in 2000. So she's been, but she's the most non-judgmental person in my corner that I've ever had in my life. But she didn't suffer any of it, no. And her and I have our own talks about things, and that kind of stuff is private between her and I. But she understands, and she's just a great gal all the way around. So there was a lot of covering up in my household growing up, and I find that's a pattern with a lot of abusive households for children. And because we get scared I was always told too, you say anything, you're going to get it worse. So you just learn to live with it. You learn to accept it and go, here comes another one. Yeah. So that's kind of that with her.
How is that kind of transformed in like some of the ways you carry it, in terms of like your own personal relationships or trying to have a family of your own? Was that kind of always in the back of your mind or almost fearful of that to ever want to start a family, hoping that it wasn't like a genetic trait maybe carried in? Or did you ever try to say, hey, that happened to me, too bad, that's just normal? I mean, what kind of materialized from that from your point of view?
Well, I got to the point, and it's, guys, I got to the point so heavily deep into my, alcoholism and drug abuse that I couldn't see the forest for the trees. I couldn't see what was left or right, up or down. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't think logically. I do have two beautiful children. My son lives in Nashville. Great. Both my children are well adjusted. My daughter's 21, lives up here in Lewiston, Idaho. Is how I ended up in Lewiston, at Lewis Clark State College, which is a national baseball powerhouse, NAIA school, years ago. So they, but I took a lot of that into relationships with me. I'm married and divorced a couple times, and I just wasn't, available I wasn't healthy to be in a relationship, and I didn't know how to behave. I had an emotional IQ of a teenager, because that's what I knew. And so I don't want to say I carried the traits of my father with me, because I always cared about people and I didn't act like he did. But, on the other hand, I wasn't available to be any good to anybody in a relationship. So, but things have changed as I've done a lot of work on myself, definitely. Yeah. So, sky's the limit these days. Shoot.
At what point did you realize, hey, I got a problem? Maybe I should seek some counseling or something out,
Yeah. Great question, Jeff. So I knew from an early age, that I had a problem. I just wasn't willing to fully concede to it. I first went to, and I don't advocate for one program over another. People who are in recovery who get sober, God bless them, whatever they do. My preferred way and what I do, I attend Alcoholics Anonymous. I work a 12-step program and a program of spirituality and things like that. Whatever works for anybody is what I say. Hey, man, have at it. Awesome. So my problem was that I always knew that I was powerless over this poison, this alcohol and these drugs, but I wasn't ready to give it up completely. And because I always would kind of make a good comeback and get better and get cleaned up, and then think that I could get a handle on things. And if I took one little sip of alcohol to my mouth, you wouldn't see me for months until I ended up in jail and then eventually prison again. And so I just can't stop. The old phrase, one is too many, 1,000's not enough for me. So like I said, it's been almost 5 years and I just don't touch it. So I've always known I've had a problem. My personal responsibility was an issue where I wasn't ready to accept it. And only until I was ready to completely, start doing some serious work and say, you've got a problem, man, and you're hurting not only yourself, but more importantly, people around you. your children and people who love you and care about you. You're pushing them away in your life too, and your friends and people that have extended a lot of help to me, is when it really hit home that changes needed to be made in my life. And ever since I started doing that, man, it's been cool. And the relationships for me are the most gratifying thing out of this whole thing of sobriety. That for me, I think, is that also the relationship I have with myself, how I feel about myself, and then the relationships that I have with, just with my mom. We didn't talk for a decade, and now we talk every day, and she ends her emails with "I love you." I mean, just simple stuff like that. Just it just almost brings tears to my eyes, because there were days where I never thought I'd get to see her again. So that's kind of the way that went.
So, Beau, how did your first? I mean, let's go back to your first interaction with the IV-based drugs or things like that. When did things kind of start off, or how did things kind of start for you as far as like your addiction?
Yeah, you bet. So, I'll just kind of run you through kind of a timeline of my addiction and my alcoholism, and that's kind of the best way I think I can explain it. I started smoking weed, I guess, when I was 10 or 11. But by this time I was really, going through a lot of abuse and kind of emotionally shattered. So it was like the first time I ever touched alcohol or a drink to my mouth, or smoked marijuana. I became somebody that I liked. I could escape that child that was so scared and fearful of everything, and it made me feel smarter and better looking and cooler and all this stuff, and somebody that I wasn't. And this was as a young child. So I ended up breaking my ankle, I think, when I was 13. I came down with a rebound and stepped on someone's foot and snapped it. And you've seen that stuff before on TV and stuff. It's just, yeah. So I broke it, and the doctor prescribed me some Percocet. I'll never forget. And I had never had pain pills before, and I was 13, and I went through that whole bottle in 2 days, because I was just like, oh my God, this is insane. Like I felt so, I was so hooked on it right away. So that led to, I was injecting heroin when I was 15 years old. It's the first time that I used heroin. I was doing, I started smoking crack later on in when my life got really, really, really low. But the heroin abuse was once in a while. Methamphetamine, I would mix them together. They're called speedballs. It's awful stuff. But I started at an early age, and I juxtaposed all that stuff with trying to play baseball and having a career and being a prospect and all this stuff and hiding all this stuff. And my life was an absolute disaster. And drugs and alcohol were the way that I coped to escape, plain and simple. And then, so it was a progression that led from there, the softer to the harder to the harder. And my biggest problem eventually ended up being alcohol. For me. And then once I touched alcohol to my lips and got in my body, everything else would come from there too. And I've sank into some pretty disgustingly low depths because of that stuff.
So how does, I know like with a lot of our schools out here towards Wisconsin, at least, they still have the randomization of like drug and alcohol testing. How are you able to avoid that, having doing that since 13, 15 years old? Because
I never had. Oh, sorry. Yeah, MD. I never had a drug test in my life, probably until I went to high school my first 2 years in Vancouver still. And then I moved to Miami, Florida, my junior year. And then so it's like Miami, well, there's everything everywhere, including steroids and all that other stuff. And this is, 1990 at the time. But I never had any, it was just craziness. So I kind of escaped that, as life went on and I got involved in the legal system and the Department of Corrections and stuff like that. Obviously, I had a lot of drug tests and stuff like that. But, there'd be times in junior college, and there's a reason why I didn't, end up taking any rides to D1 schools or I lost my draft status because I got kicked out of high school my senior year. But, I'd go from 93, 94 on the gun to, blowing guys away to my next time out, topping out at 82, because I'd show up drunk and reeking like alcohol. And, my arm was hanging on a thread. And it's just, I ended up being drafted by the Marlins and this and that. And, it's whatever. But who wants to invest money in a guy like that who's, one outing he's throwing low to mids, and in the next three he's barely touching 84. and he reeks like booze every time he shows up at the park, and so.
Well, as a guy that ever topped out at like 70 miles an hour if I was lucky on a good day, I mean, I'm not going to throw a fit and say, oh, only 82. I mean, I can't talk. Jeff's our baseball guy, man, so I'm sure he can chime in. But yeah, when I
that's what
MD, better than me.
Yeah, Jeff, MD was telling me that the other day that you love baseball, or you're the baseball guy of the show. So
yeah, when I was younger, I'd throw in baseballs, but I could throw low 80s, high 70s.
Heck yeah, man.
I kind of in high school we kind of had a coach that had his favorites, a JV league in high school, and he just never wanted to pitch me at the varsity level, and I don't know what happened.
Well, I mean, hey, you know what? Low 80s. You run a 2-seam fastball. It's all about moving it and where moving guys off the plate and up, down, left, right. Pitching's a chess game.
Yeah.
More of just over. And nowadays the game's different, but I love the guys like Maddox and guys like that who can, move the ball around and a lot of sink to it and set guys up and just kind of play that chess game, that mind game of pitcher against batter, type stuff. Yeah. So that's cool.
I kind of still hold a little grudge over it a little bit, I guess, but I kind of like to ask him what happened, or I don't
know. what position did you play? Or?
The coach would have put him in, we'd have won state,
I'm not going that far. That far, but I think we would have won a few more games. I don't know.
No, I hear you, man. Yeah. It's like the Al Bundy thing in Polk High when 4 touchdowns. He always tells the story of, or Uncle Rico. Man, I feel like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Cool. I got respect for catchers. That's the tools of ignorance, they call them. It's, wearing all that stuff and then, just getting down and squatting every pitch. I mean, that's tough business being a catcher.
That's my favorite position.
It's fun to play. I played a little bit, younger, just, but I was just too tall and lanky and, but yeah, all the respect, man, to catchers, catching those guys. Toughest position on the diamond, definitely.
Any player that kind of helped you through, getting through the, like kind of pointing you towards, hey, maybe you have a problem or something, or a good friend or something?
Yeah, I had, I played with a lot of guys, you got to think in Miami, it was, we had some crazy times because a lot of guys, we're doing speed before games, and I'm not a lot of guys. Some guys were, and that was really prevalent in the big leagues, in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. But then I remember playing at a JC in Washington the year I got drafted, and this guy ended up playing. He was a pretty good pitcher with us. He wasn't great, but he was a staunch Christian. Jared Riggins is his name. And fantastic guy. I believe that was his name. Anyways, ended up going to SDS, San Diego State, and then went signed with Cleveland, pitched in the bigs with the Tribe. Not sure how many years. Had more than a cup of coffee, but not a long time career. But he would pull me to the side and just talk to me through it, and he would never be judgmental to me. He would say, "Hey, man, you're wasting your talent, man, and I'm praying for you, and I hope you can get it together," and just kind of talk with me and let me talk to him about things. And I always appreciated that from certain guys that I played with. Not everybody, because there were guys that were like me too. At that age, most guys are not emotionally capable of, I guess advising or being there for other people when you're a teenager or even in college. I mean, it's asking a lot because we're always trying to get our own lives in order too, if you know what I mean. But, I had help over the years, certainly, especially when I got older. And I shunned a lot of it. And that's why I feel the need to share and give back the best I can these days, because I've helped. And like I said, I love my sobriety, and that's my number one thing in my life. It's not baseball, or it's not what kind of car I drive, or what's in the bank account. When they put me in the ground, man, I want people to remember me as a good guy who turned it around and helped people flat out. And the relationships that I had with people are the most important thing to me today. And it's not the material stuff. So, but yes, to answer your question, Jeff, I had guys try to help me, but I just wasn't ready to accept it.
So, Beau, walk us through your first arrest or your first stint or trouble with the law. Kind of what was the situation leading into it?
So I was thinking about this, and I remember when I got kicked out of school in Miami, my senior year, and I lost my draft status, I moved back to Vancouver with my mom. And I was probably I was probably going to be a top 3 to 5 round pick out of high school. Ended up, just losing my draft status. I couldn't get drafted. I was academically ineligible. Moved back to Vancouver. So I was essentially like a free agent, able to sign with anybody. And and at that time I had a good name as far as talent wise, but I had a bad name because of my just the stuff that I did. So quick little story. We're in Vancouver and we're my buddies and we're drinking at night. We get in a fight in a bar and I end up getting arrested. And I think I was 18 at the time. And I ended up spending the night in a Vancouver, BC jail. And the next morning I had a private workout with a Dodger scout. I still remember his name, Dave Chapman. And I, if I threw well enough, they'd probably ink me right there. And, send me to short A somewhere and just get things going. I got out, I got released at 7 a.m. or so, got to the park, I think at noon, hungover, reeked like alcohol, had an assault charge from the night before. And, like I said, was throwing like 84 max, from a guy who could, throw in the low 9s and even harder when I was healthier, and again, it's the whole showing up, looking like hell, smelling like booze, sloppy mechanics. So scouts say that they look at the radar gun and they say, no way. For one, two, they say this guy is so disrespectful. He showed up at a private workout smelling like alcohol. I didn't tell him where I was the night before, but it was just plain to see. So of course they're not going to invest anything in guys like that. And so, MD, you asked, that's kind of my first brush with the law. And it went on from there. I got kicked out of school, several surgeries. This Wednesday, I'm having my 4th surgery on my shoulder, biceps tendon repair and a full rotator cuff repair again. It's a last ditch effort. 50-50 shot if it ever heals, but I got to try one more time. And it's a long one, like an 8 to 12 month rehab and all that stuff. But so the law stuff progressively got worse as I got older. So just went to DUIs, to violence, to jails, and then eventually to the penitentiary a couple different times for years.
Was that your last kind of chance in the big leagues?
My last chance I had to make it as a baseball player?
Yeah.
Well, no, that I actually got drafted after that, and I would have these stints where I would get myself together. So I went down to a JC in California, College of the Siskiyous, and played probably the best JC baseball in California they have in that state. And a lot of junior college guys or guys that because to go D1 out of college or high school, it used to be you'd have to wait 3 years, play 3 years for a D1 school, and then you could sign. So a lot of D1 guys will go to a JC for a year and then sign right off the bat. So great competition. We played against Butte, which Aaron Rodgers went, as you guys I'm sure know. Butte College in California before Aaron Rodgers went to Cal. That was obviously a long time after I was around there, but they were in our league, and I got kicked out of school there too, for, drinking in the dorms, and I got in a fight and just dumb stuff, and I was always doing this stuff, and it comes down to, I hated myself. I hated everything about me, and I had no confidence, and I wasn't, and I did all this stuff, drank and this over the top behavior to hide all these insecurities I had about myself and all this negative energy that I had about myself. And I was just no good to anybody. And so I was given chances, but I just could never put it together. And so you couple the throwing cheese one day to throwing absolute garbage, and 4 days after that with an arrest record, and it just didn't happen for me. Plus the surgeries and all this stuff. So there's a line in Bull Durham, when Crash says to Nuke, you got $1 million arm with a 10-cent head. And I think I was telling MD about this the other day, and Scout said that about me back then. And it, looking back, they were right. It kind of hurt at the time, but I wouldn't take a chance on anybody like that. So that was it for baseball. And I love it. Baseball is dear to my heart. It's my religion. And, I love it to death, but that was it. So, yeah.
So, Beau, I have a tougher question for you.
Yeah, you bet, man. Yeah, bring them on. Anything you want to talk about, guys. I'm
Well, you mentioned the upcoming surgery. Obviously, the pain associated with that. Are you kind of worried about that potential chance of a relapse with something like that, or what's your ability to kind of sidestep that so it doesn't happen again?
No, that's a fantastic question. So I have a sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've gone through this before surgeries. Like I said, I had one 9 months ago. And and I'm going to require a little bit of pain medication. They give me a nerve block, which works for about a day and a half. That wears off, and then the incredible pain comes on. Shoulder surgeries are tough. They're more painful than knees and ankles and stuff like that for whatever reasons. But so I develop a plan with my sponsor. What I do is this is prescribed, say 1 to 2 pills every 6 hours, and I take them if I need them. I take them as prescribed. And I've come as far as I have, almost 5 years in my sobriety to where I'm responsible enough to handle that. So, yes, MD a little bit. People have relapsed and gone back out, and struggle over that kind of stuff. But these are real life situations where we're all human and we go to the hospital, we have surgeries, and people in recovery and not. And this is stuff that we're just have to deal with. So as long as I'm responsible about it, be transparent about what I'm doing. No worries at all about it. So, but it's a great question. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. How have your kids been kind of with your story? I mean, are they, kind of the attribution to why you've gotten to the point of where you are now? I mean, do they kind of look back and say, well, Dad, you shouldn't have done that? Or are they pretty understanding? Like, what's your relationship like? Because Jeff and I obviously are dads too. Mine are 7 and 13. Jeff's are quite a bit younger. But it's always nice to hear another dad's perspective, when it comes to raising kids.
Yeah, you bet. So I can't sit up here and lie to you guys. It's not perfect. And it's a work in progress. I would love to say, Jeff, MD, my kids and I are perfect, and they've forgiven me and this and that, but I can't. A lot of broken promises over the years, and a lot of not being there. And I don't have the right to demand, because my life now is in order, and it's been in order for a long time, for demand that they come back into my life and be a huge part of my life. Slowly but surely things, but it's not my call to say, you must do this and you must do that. I pray honestly, and not to make this about religion or whatever, but one of the things I pray at night is God, please soften my children's heart towards me and let them see how I live today, and we'll take it from there. Because I was never physically or verbally violent at all to any of my children, ever, to both my children, simply because of what I went through as a child, and that's one thing that I always stuck to. I vowed I would never. But I broke promises, and of course, my words got to be with not only my children, but with everybody else in my life. My word got to be meaningless. And they grew up. My daughter's married. She's 21 and married and well-adjusted and has a fantastic life. And my son's 25 and he's a photographer and just outside of Nashville in Clarksville, Tennessee. And they're great kids, and I have good relationships. They have different moms, but with both their mothers, and it's just a work in progress. And I have faith that it's going to be fine. I just can't, nor do I have the right to push the issue, if that makes sense, to make demands on them. Yeah. So
and it's good to know that your son's in Clarksville, because when we go back to Nashville, we know some people down that way. So it's good to know. I'm going to have to hit him up for some pictures while we're down there.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's, I love Clarksville. Yeah. I didn't know you're familiar with Clarksville. It's about 45 minutes outside of Nashville. But.
Yeah. I work for, Bath Fitter, so shout out to Bath Fitter if you need a quick bathroom renovation, tub or shower here in Wisconsin. Got to throw that out there. So
awesome, yeah, get that out there.
Yeah, we have a plant down in Springfield, Tennessee, and then nice Coach Arena Ball. We had a couple players out of Tennessee, and one of them we still hang out with quite a bit. Is right outside of Clarksville. So, yep, familiar.
Yeah, I was stationed there.
Good athletes down there, boy. I'll tell you, even in their flag football leagues, like during the week. I was ready to sign some guy that says this guy can do this stuff in pads. Yeah. Holy smokes, man! Those guys are flying. Yeah. I mean, half the guys look like they're running 4.4s. It's like holy smokes.
It's funny you say that, because some of the best athletes I've ever played with are A, when I was in the Army, or B, when I was in the pen. In prison. There are some good athletes in there. Some guys that just made some mistakes and are in there for stuff. But there's some, a few guys that played the minors. There's D1 guys. There's D1 talent guys. Not everybody, but there's a few guys in there that are some big time athletes, man. And just made mistakes. But yeah. So Clarksville, they're kind of dear to my heart. But to wrap the question up, you asked me about my kids. I love them dearly, and I know they do love me because I know that through their moms. They tell their mom that. But I just need to be patient and continue to live the way I'm living, and things are going to be fine. These things take time, and I feel bad about my past actions. I can't change them, but what I can change is how I live today and how I live moving forward, and so things are going to be fine with them. And I'm just happy that they're well adjusted.
If you're looking for a limousine company in the Green Bay or Fox Valley area, look no further than Green Bay Limousine, 715-490-2412.
You're listening to the Scotty Sports Show with our dad, MD Lovelace, and Jeff Bryce.
Sure. So Jeff and I have never been locked up before or anything like that, at least not that Jeff's ever shared with me. Obviously, we all kind of see the movies and stuff as far as what it was like. What were some of your experiences like in the jail system, or the pen system? I know you said you kind of had some different phases, but, is there an opportunity to kind of do some working out? Is that kind of where your faith more kicked in, was because of inside the walls, or, what
Absolutely.
were your experiences like?
Great question. And this is what I'm more than happy to answer all of it, but hold on one sec, guys. So my last prison sentence was 10 years, and I did, I think, 44 months of it before I was paroled. I got an early release. I think 46 months out of the, it was four mandatory plus a 6th tail is what they call. So I almost did 4 years last time, and that saved my life 100%. I've been out of prison for over a year now. I left, I took a bus. I was upstate. Took a bus when I got out of release over a year ago, went straight to an AA meeting that night and have never looked back. So on my last prison sentence, I was about 2 years into it. And I decided, and I was at a rougher type penitentiary where, it's just, gang members, and it's all race run and all the prison politics, they call it, and all this stuff. And it was a rough place. And in prison, it's actually for an alcoholic or a drug addict, it's like a dream because anything you want, you can get. Like seriously, anything. And so, and I had stayed out of trouble those first couple of years of my last sentence. But I decided that I really needed to make a change, intrinsically inside. And I started to do a lot of thinking about things, and kind of like I said at the beginning of the show, what I've done, where I want to go, and how I want to get there. And I just started praying a lot. And I started going to AA, inside. There's all kinds of programs inside, religious programs. I really wasn't into, church too much, that kind of stuff. But I started praying a lot, and I started going to AA, and I was familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous. So I was able to start sponsoring other inmates, other guys inside prison, and working with them and teaching them about what I know about sobriety. And it evolves from there. It's like you help one person, the next person gets to pass on what's given to them, and so forth and so on. And that's how it works in the real world as well, in the life of recovery. I started playing softball. Man, it was awesome. I started coaching. My shoulder was okay. I played a little shortstop. I like to say, I played against these young guys, and I said, shoot, you let this young guy beat you with one arm and a broken back, in his mid to late 40s. And I tease him about it, but there are some good ball players in there. And I started to turn my life around when I got inside, when my last time I was there, because I didn't want to leave the same guy that I came in, because that's not going to be any good for me or anybody else in my life. So, and I've just continued on for over a year since I've been out, and it's been fantastic. So, if you guys want to know anything else about prison life, have at it. Ask me. I can.
So, what kind of did you have, like, your mainstay of visitors while you were kind of locked up? Did you have any visitors? What was that experience like, or communication, like you said, with family has been kind of rough, but is that kind of how you got closer to your mom again, maybe too?
Well, I realized the last time that I was in, when I got out there, that everybody in my life had left me. except for my sister. Or let me say I had pushed everybody away instead of they left me. And I had nobody left, and that was my fault. My sister stayed with me through thick and thin. I think that's just who she is. My mom had to detach from me. God bless her, but she just couldn't see her son doing all these things and going through all this stuff. My friends had left. They didn't want to be around me. They weren't friends anymore because I'd pushed them all away with my behavior. My wife was living with another man, a guy I knew, had left me. I was at rock bottom, man. I was just done. And so I didn't have any real familial support besides my sister while I was in the last 3 or 4 years. And that was a good thing for me. My mom and I would email maybe every 3 months, and we would just talk about superficial stuff like, someone's glad to see that, Alabama's playing in the national title, or I see your Red Sox won in 18, or, stuff like that. And not to upset anybody, because I know it's a Wisconsin show, but, I'm a big New England sports guy, but not just superficial stuff like that. And like I said, my mom and I talk all the time, and she's proud of me, and she supports what I'm doing, and she tells me she loves me, and it's not because of the things I do, it's because of who I am, I think, and I think that attracted her back to me as she's proud of her to have her son back. But me being by myself and having pushed everybody away really gave me time to really objectively step back and look at what I've done and say that this is of my own doing, and I've got to stop blaming people for things in my life that have happened, because those excuses don't fly anymore. So it gets lonely. You miss your family. There's a lot of downtime, a lot of time to be spent when it's just you and your cellie, in an 8x12 cell, or it's just you in a cell, or you in a dorm with a group of guys. It just gets, there's all the regular stuff you see that goes on in there, all the violence and the fights and all the other crap. But you give people respect, and they'll give it back to you. If you go in there mouthy and think you're a tough guy, and you're going to have serious problems. But if you go in there and be respectful of people, and get in the hierarchy of things, of how things are run in there in those places, people won't really screw with you for the most part. So yeah, it turned out to be a blessing, biggest blessing in my life the last time I went.
What was your biggest surprise about prison the last time you were in? And then what would be your biggest thing that maybe you learned about yourself while you were locked up as well?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll tell you the first time I ever I've been going to jail for a long time, for 6 months here, 8 months there, 4 months here. And then eventually the judge gets tired of you. I got cut a lot of breaks because I was a veteran, and the judge would say, well, you're a veteran, you were in infantry, and thank you for your service to your country. We're just going to slap you on the wrist and maybe send you to county jail for 6 months and put you on probation. But they just got tired of it eventually and said, you're going up. You're getting sent up. So the first sentence was actually 10 years also, for a DUI. And I ended up doing like 3 of it. But so when you hit when you get off the county van or the county bus, it takes you from the county jail to the prison. And you see the prison walls, and you see the guard towers, and you see the razor wire. You realize that it's not a game, and it hits home, and it's intimidating, and it's you're like, oh, okay, I really stepped in it now. And then you get out there and you get on the on the rec yard where you see all the weight piles, and you see these giant dudes with tattoos from head to toe, and you're like, dang, man, this is no joke. And then you factor in, I'm not going home for years. So you can go either one of 2 ways. And I was a little bit older and able to take care of myself. So I wasn't impressionable like a lot of the young kids are that come into prison that get taken over by these gangs and having to do stuff for it's called politics, and stuff like that. But so the first time I was in, I just messed around and screwed around and was not very good. The second time, like I said, I said, I'm sitting out here again in my early 40s. I'm not going home for years again, and something's got to change. And I made a commitment to myself, and then I prayed a lot, and I started just changing, slowly but surely. I started to see signs in my life, and I started to see, instead of looking at prison as a sentence, as a negative thing, I started to look at it as, this is a positive, to where I can take the time to sit with myself, and I can figure things out, and I can set the stage for the rest of my life. instead of this quick fix type crap that I was always doing my whole life and then throw it all away 6 months later. And the last time I was in, it gave me the foundation that I needed to spring forward. And like I said, I hit the bricks outside, the day I got on that bus and came home and went to a AA meeting that night, and I haven't looked back, and I won't look back. And I live day to day. I have long-term goals, but my life is, I live one day at a time, and it's just freaking fantastic. I love it. It's just great to be free and not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually and metaphorically, and everything that freedom is to me. So
not being able to do anything in prison, and then do you just live your life to the fullest now and just do anything and everything just to get the best of it right now?
Absolutely. Not thank you for bringing that up. And some people are perpetually half glass half empty, and I was like that for years, and now it's just like, I sponsor other guys too, and I was talking to this one guy I was talking about the other day, and I said, man, I'm living on house money. And he didn't understand what I meant by that. And I think you guys kind of do, by just saying that, nothing really bothers me anymore, because I've been as low as you can go. And I've put in the hard work to get back. And so now, I don't, I'm not quick to anger. I don't get upset. Little things don't bother me. I love life. I see gratitude for the littlest things, or I have gratitude for the littlest things. And I know this may sound cliche-ish, but it's just amazing, like I'll have fits of crying, I'm not afraid to admit it. I ride my bike, a lot of mountain biking in the mountains, and it's very spiritual for me to be up there. And yesterday I went on a hike, my last hike before my surgery on Wednesday. And I was just, it was a nice day here in Boise. It was about 75, not a cloud in the sky. And it's a beautiful little town to live in, man. It's great. And I started to have tears in my eyes, kind of looking around and looking at the mountains, looking at the sunshine, and just kind of looking at my hands and just like, I'm free and I feel great, and and I'm healthy, and the relationships I have in my life are fantastic, and just so grateful to have another chance, and for people to give me another chance. So my gratitude is off the charts for so many things, Jeff, and I notice it everywhere. Yeah. So if that makes sense to you guys,
if you had to share one of your stories, Beau, as far as like when you kind of realized like, damn, I definitely went as low as I could go. Do you mind sharing that kind of story with the listeners real quick?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how this is going to make people feel, but I can tell you the lowest point of my life, if you'd like me to. I was so destroyed and ravaged by drugs and alcohol. I was living in Spokane, Washington, up where Gonzaga is. And I was living in a homeless shelter, between the streets and a homeless shelter. If you get caught drinking in the homeless shelter, they kick you out. So this was 2001, and I had bounced between Walla Walla. Walla Walla is where Drew Bledsoe came from. So just to make reference to that, kind of that area of the country. And I was down to, I'm about 210 pounds. I'm about 6'4", 210 right now is my basic walking around weight. And I was down to about 168, 170 pounds. And I was prostituting myself on the streets for crack cocaine to men and women. And I'm not ashamed to say it, and that's part of my story, that it got so bad and it got so low that people became objects. They became a conduit to what do I need to do and how can I do it to get drugs to survive for that day? Because I shook all day. I was sick. I didn't do drugs at that time in my life, or to drink to have a good time, but I had to have them to survive, and I've overdosed a couple times, and had some pretty close calls, just some awful times. And those are but they're of my own doing, and that's not my life anymore. And I love sobriety, and I try to help out as many people, and I try to get a message out that so many people, like I said earlier, they're so broken inside that, you can't judge people and the things they've done until you've walked in their shoes, and you'll hear stories from people and you'll see them and go, what? There's no way never that you did that, or you sank that low. And I'm here to say, man, it doesn't matter. You're black, white, rich, poor. Addiction has no face, and it can happen to you like that. And the things the depths to which it took me, I was ashamed for a long time. And the story I just told you was very shameful for me for a long time. But now it's a point of power in my life. And those things don't have power over me because I talk about them and I've admitted my mistakes and I've made amends to the people that I needed to make amends to. And so if somebody wants to say, oh God, you did that, or I say, well, yeah, I did. And I don't do those things anymore. And I'm apologetic for it. And I don't live my life that way. And, you're just sorry, man, you don't have any power over me anymore. And that's kind of the way it is. And it gives me freedom. And I don't regret the things I did because it all led to my story today. And I'm in a really good, physical and mental state of mind these days, and a good place to where I can share and help others. So that's about as low as I got, MD, to be honest with you. So I hope that doesn't, offend any of your viewers or anything.
No, it's okay. I mean, that's what we asked for. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has that point in life where they go, man, I think this is as bad as I can get. And then unfortunately, as bad as it sounds, it's stories like that make you realize, hey, life ain't so bad after all,
That's, and that leads
Bob
to
Saget joke, wasn't it? You used SD for crack? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Bob Saget is brutal.
Which movie is that where he's talking about that? They're in a meeting and goes, "You're here for some weed?" Like, dude, I used to SD for coke. It's like, oh,
yeah.
So,
well, that's Bob Saget.
I didn't make light of your situation. Yeah. Obviously, it's a tough story, but for some reason, that reference just came to mind, man.
No, MD. Hey, as you can tell, I laugh about it, because it's not who I am, and my past doesn't define who I am. And if I can't make fun of myself and the things I did, then I'm not even gonna. Why am I living? If I'm not going to, like Jeff said, how am I living? Do I just feel like I can do anything? And I do. And I don't take myself too serious. I take one thing in life serious, and that's my recovery. And then if I'm doing that good on a daily basis, then everything else is gravy because it gives me a life, and I can share, and I can laugh about these things that I've done. And I can take the power away from them. But the great thing is that other people can, inside, they're like, oh my God, I did that too. And I feel so shameful for it. And that guy did it, and he's talking about it, and he's succeeding now. Well, so can I. And you wouldn't believe the messages I get from, because I post a lot of recovery stuff. MD, I know you see some of it, that's how kind of we connected, on Facebook and, I think on Instagram a little bit, but I get a lot of messages from private, like DMs and stuff from moms and dads around the country that I don't know. I don't know who they are. And they say, thank you for posting your story. My son just read it, and because of that story, he's going to rehab tomorrow. Or he went to his first AA meeting today. He read your story. And that stuff is what it's all about for me. 100%, man. And I don't even have the words to tell you guys what that stuff means to me. So to be able to explain my story, to get it out there, for people to see, a guy who, was taken by a big league club in the draft, was drafted and had all this stuff and fell to the depths that I did, and then but able to come back and have a good life. I think that that's what America's about, man, is comeback stories and second chances. And I'm just beyond grateful to be able to share and help. So.
Have you ever had the opportunity to be like a motivational speaker, or have a place to share your story, like to the public at all?
Yeah, we do. I do a little bit of that sometimes. I go to a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, as I've told you guys. And Jeff, I get asked to speak on occasion. They're called speaker meetings, to where they'll put it out, through the community of AA. So and so is going to be speaking tonight for an hour and a half. And there'll be people that'll show up and listen and stuff like that. And I have a few other things going on, some really interesting stuff that that guys I've met through recovery, athletes, ex-veterans, some really actually big names too. Of course, I don't, want to break their anonymity on here, but just, and we don't talk about sports. I know a few guys, and we don't talk about, hey, the time you pitched the bigs or when you struck that guy, or whatever. We talked about recovery and life. And I told MD about a guy I know that, off camera, that is just one of the most inspirational dudes I've ever met, and an ex-football player, and involved in the Packer organization, and just all kinds of things. So yeah, I've got a few things in the hopper, and but I do it to help other people, and B, because it helps me too. It keeps me accountable to people, and I just feel like my whole life is just opened up by being able to share and to come to grips with the things that happened to myself as a child, the things that I in turn did to other people, and then kind of a redemption story of coming, coming to reality, or coming to grips with it, reconciling it all, and moving forward in life. And I get to meet guys like you guys. I get to meet other guys that are similar to you fellas, cool guys, sports guys that, and we all have different backgrounds where we come from, but the bottom line is, I think we all want the best for each other, and it's cool for me to be able to help. Yeah.
So before we get to the sports side of things, we're going to do rapid questions with you next.
Okay.
Why we're here. And I won't keep it too long, just because I know
it's okay.
Schedule's here. But
we're good.
If you had to give one piece of advice for anybody kind of watching this that's, contemplating going to an AA meeting, or contemplating, what to do in life next, what's your biggest piece of advice that you seem to give, within your speeches?
Absolutely. So I find that people tend to be really hurting inside and are really scared to talk about it, especially men. Men and women, but we as men think that we have to be macho and we need to be big athletes or just men. And so we're scared to talk about our feelings. And hence we stuff them, and a lot of alcoholics drink because of that stuff. So my advice is that if you're feeling like that and you feel that you need to drink over your insecurities or your fears or your problems, just know you're not alone, and we all have those fears and we all have those insecurities. And if you go to an AA meeting and you open up to people are going to give you nothing but love. They're not going to judge you. They're going to welcome you in with open arms. And if you stick with the program, as tough as it may be, I guarantee that it will get better for you. Because loneliness is the worst feeling, and to lose hope is the worst feeling ever, and there's other stories that I could go into about stuff with guns and suicidal stuff, but just not to give up hope, and it gets better, and I promise you it gets better. It just takes a little time, and once we can get our brains cleared, people will welcome you with open arms. Absolutely. So just reach out and keep pushing. That's what I like to say.
Awesome. So our next segment we're going to get into here in just a second is a rapid fire sports session. But I got to throw a word out for our sponsors, Green Bay Limousine Company. For everyone in Green Bay looking for a limousine service, obviously look no further than the Green Bay Limousine Company, and talk to Joe and he'll take care of you. So Beau, you ready for some sports talk, I suppose?
Yeah, let's hit it, man. This is my you're speaking my language, man, now. So let's go.
What is obviously a Wisconsin-based sports show? What's your best Wisconsin sports memory that you have to mind?
You know what? I was thinking about this earlier. If you guys are going to ask my feelings on the Pack, because I loved Juan Nieves as a pitcher for the Brewers when he threw the no-no. Jeff, do you remember that? I'm not sure if you remember that. Juan Nieves. I think did he pitch for the Brewers? And I loved Robin Yount and Gantner and all those guys. So growing up, I was a Sox fan, but the Brewers were in the AL East. And we all had one thing in common. We hated the Yankees. So I was a Brewers fan, man. Ben Ogilvy, Cecil Cooper, Larry Eisel, Simmons, all those. I can go on and on. But I loved Robin Yount, and I was a big Brett Favre fan, man. It hurt when they beat the Pats because I'm a lifelong Patriots fan. I'm a huge Brett Favre fan. So, and I know Green Bay has a complicated relationship with Brett Favre. And I don't know, obviously, like you guys know the ins and outs. But just as a guy on the outside, I admire how he played the game. And,
he has his own little addiction problem too, as it is too.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. So you got to admire a little comeback story. And he kind of puts his foot in his mouth sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
With some of the stuff he says, but he's a good old country boy, and I think Kill, Mississippi is where he's from. But so I am a Wisconsin sports fan, absolutely. Obviously not like I am in New England, and I was like, oh boy, these guys are going to hate me being a Patriots fan. But I tell you, Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen in my life, hands down. Being a Brady fan, obviously, you know where I'm going to go with that. He's my favorite. But the most talented football player I've ever seen in my life, including Mahomes and these guys, is Aaron Rodgers, hands down. Never seen a man be able to do what that man can do from a quarterback position. So
now we asked a few of his teammates if they watched him on Jeopardy. Did you tune into that?
I didn't, man. I didn't. But I heard mixed reviews. I heard he was hilarious because I know he's a really bright guy, and I know he's witty, and I know he's dry, from his interviews.
His quarterback meetings are insane. Like they said, a couple former teammates of his that were quarterbacks said in the quarterback room. You know how you'd quiz out to a game every week about these personnel versus this versus that. What do we check to? Well, his was like stupid trivia. Huntley talks pretty exclusively about how, it was a matter of brain cells and almost like Jeopardy type questions. Like, tell me all about the space continuum transfunctioner and this and that and the other. It was just the most ridiculous stuff that he would make guys come up with.
And Huntley said this to you? In the quarterback meetings?
Publicly in a few interviews. There's been a few.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Been ripped on him a little bit for that too, and a few other guys too. They just said the quarterback room is just, over the last few years especially, it's got really weird with like the random trivia instead of like, hey, when it's my turn, I want to be prepared and know how to read personnel. Instead it's like,
absolutely. I think I'd rather know what to do against cover 2 or cover 3 or man instead of, who came up with quantum physics or, or molecular theory of whatever, and I kind of
seen other quarterbacks come behind here, and we've all said that in Green Bay too, going, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
Brett's a good friend of ours, but
so I think Brett was more of the football guy, you guys go deep and I'll get it to you. And if you see cover, cut it off across the, or whatever, but so I admire Aaron Rodgers for his talent, but I've never been a giant fan of his, to be honest. I'm not negative against him, just haven't,
So being a New England guy, are you just ready for Tom Brady to be done? Or, how bad did that hurt last year for you?
I'm ready for him to be done.
Yeah, I bet. It's a two-sided coin for me. I'm happy for him. I think he look, Belichick's been trying, whatever people say, I'll tell you straight up, Belichick's been trying to get rid of him since 17. And if they wanted him around, they would have given him a long-term deal, and they wouldn't have kept him on these one-year deals with these incentive-laden stuff. And so I'm happy for him
right now with our quarterback. In case he didn't,
but Aaron's got you guys by he holds the cards.
I don't believe any of these stories. I think media's just driving it out there. I think he's staying. I don't think Love's going to play until his contract's done.
I think Aaron's staying too, honestly. I'm not. We got to see Love out here. I was telling MD because I'm in Boise, and he was, I think, Utah State or Utah
State, yeah.
Utah State, yeah. And people had mixed reviews on him. A lot of talent, big arm, but just wasn't real apt, I guess, at the QB position. I don't know if that's a proper word to say, or I want to say green, young, inexperienced. Is what I'd
accuracy has been a big thing we've heard around town a lot. Is consistency and the accuracy has been kind of lacking on his part.
But look at Mahomes coming out too, though. People really had a cannon, but now the guy's probably the best quarterback in the league, or top 2 or 3. And he's brilliant. He's so smart in the way Mahomes reads defenses and adjusts and has combined his ability to run and throw and not become just a runner or a thrower.
And
so Jordan Love is.
He and his kids never need to work again a day in their life. So I mean, there's that too, which is nice.
Yeah, well, and his agent too, wasn't it Steinberg?
Yeah, we were talking about this off air a little bit about the Steinberg.
He did about 5% of $300 million or 200, whatever his contract was. So
right, his old man pitched for a long time in the majors too. Pat Mahomes, right?
Pat Mahomes is a good pitcher, and
I mean,
I used to like watching him. And there was a guy named LaTroy Hawkins.
Yeah,
they were best friends, and they pitched a lot too. And so he comes from an athletic family, so you know where he gets that gun from. And people always say he's the greatest talent I've ever seen, but I still say Aaron Rodgers is, but who knows? Both quarterbacks.
Who was your go-to athlete kind of growing up, Bo? Who did you look up to, or who is like your greatest team of all time?
My favorite baseball team of all time is the 2007 Red Sox. Not the 2004 Sox, even though I love them to death. I can tell you anything about them. But the 2007 team did have Josh Beckett on it, and those guys, and Schilling were amazing to me. My two sports heroes growing up, original guys, were Larry Bird and Jim Rice. And Jim Rice played for the Sox. He was a left fielder after Yastrzemski, number 14. So he was my first baseball hero. And then Larry Bird was my other sports hero. And then I loved Clemens until I didn't love Clemens. And I don't like Clemens anymore. He went to the Yanks, and so Pedro's my favorite pitcher of all time. So those are my sports guys. And I loved Will Clark. Will Clark for the Jeff. You probably remember Will Clark for the Giants.
He played with the Tigers too.
No, Will played. He may for a year at the end, but he went to the Cards and bounced around a little bit. Injuries got him towards the end of the year, but he had a real good career with the Giants. And then when Bonds got there, Will left the next year. Yeah. He was just, the way he played the game was real respectful of the game of baseball. And man, that guy was born to hit. So I love.
I'll give you a fun fact. I'm actually a Cub fan.
Oh, you're a Cubby fan. Nice. Yeah. I played with Dempster, man. Dempster and I know each other.
Oh, Dempster's awesome.
Dempster's the funniest dude of all time, man.
Yes.
If you could get him on your show, God.
Hey, we're going to leave that up to you. You make it happen, Bo.
I'll try to get in contact.
Dempster is hilarious. He once in a while gets on that broadcast and just goes and goes. Yeah. It's just,
Yeah, you got to hear his Harry Carey, his Will Ferrell stuff, who's the guy who passed? Chris Farley. He does the best Chris Farley I've ever heard. So Ryan's a good guy. I know him from Vancouver, BC. He was also a Marlins draft pick before he went to the Cubbies and was
started with the Marlins. Didn't he?
Yeah, so Ryan is a really respected guy in British Columbia and Canada. We had the same pitching coach, guy who put the big maple, they call him, Paxton in the bigs. Rowan Wick for the Cubbies, another Canadian guy. A lot of guys that I know that I've bounced around and played with back in the day.
He's still with the Cubs in the front office, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah, we haven't communicated in some time, just because of my circumstances. But I've known him probably since 23, 24 years. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah,
hilarious too. Yeah, hell of a pitcher too.
That's my favorite players are Mark Grace and Ryan Sandberg. I mean, back in the day, those guys.
Gracie and Rhino, man. Rhino. He had some issues with Dave Martinez and a couple other guys there. Yeah, and I think there were some family issues going on there. But Ryan may have been, top 3 or 4, at least top 5 greatest second baseman ever play. He was so. Yeah, and he's got an argument for the best, Yeah.
And Gracie, that guy.
And Gracie was funny. He could hit and he could field, but he was funny. He was hilarious, just the stuff, the story.
He just looked so odd at what he did.
I know, and that weird stance.
Just that batting stance.
Yeah, but he could hit, man. Some guys are just born to hit. John Kruk and guys like that, So, yeah.
So besides baseball, Bo, is there another sport that you kind of loved growing up? I mean, you mentioned you played a little bit of hoops. Were you ever a football guy? Were you ever?
I loved. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I loved playing football. I loved it, man. I didn't play in high school because I just had a lot of stuff going on, but I didn't play baseball. I loved playing hoops. Playground hoops were my favorite. I actually, I remember one time we were in Miami, a bunch of us playing on this playground, and Vanilla Ice shows up. You remember that dude? Rob Van Winkle, and I still remember it. He's driving an Acura NSX, and back then this was like 1990, and that was a nice ride, man. And he's got his posse, and And they're all playing this. I still remember the court. It's called Devonair Court in South Miami. Not
garbage,
South
or could he actually hoop?
No, he could hoop. He could play a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, he could play a little bit. So, I mean, not big time, but he wasn't garbage. He could handle himself out there. Yeah. So, I loved all sports. I loved playing hockey, because playing it's Wisconsin guys, I mean, that's huge, so, Badgers are it, I mean, I love UMass and BC and BU, but I love when Wisconsin does well too,
women's and men's hockey, man. It's just been a staple the last few years. I mean,
and then Bob Johnson, Badger
women's,
yes, yeah, or the women's has taken off, absolutely, yeah.
Well, the Green Bay Gamblers head coach from the youth league, if you understand what that is, the USHL Hockey League, came out of Green Bay as the former head coach. So
okay,
Will Granado. So
Granado, yeah, Cammy is. Cammy and Tony, that whole Granado family. Yeah. Just studs, all of them. Yeah.
Even the Tampa Bay Lightning head coach, he's from the Gamblers too.
Who coaches them now?
I can't think of his name now.
Remember, I should know because they always the Bruins and going at it. But I haven't been paying a lot of attention this year to sports, just because I've had so much going on. I mean, I do. I check ESPN and I check the Sox are in first, Yanks are in last. So good job, New York. Stanton's getting 35 a year
today, Beau. It's tough.
Oh boy!
Every time we get a good player, I mean, let's let Cecil Fielder go. Let's let this guy go. Every time they get good, we're like, we should get rid of him. I mean, look at the shortstop. Wasn't it Arcia or whatever they just got rid of?
I'm all right with that, yeah.
Well, the Brewers are, I root for them because they've been around for a long time. And they're a real
small town, too,
It's small, exactly, and it's a small town market, and it's tough competing with the Sox and the Yanks and the Dodgers of the world. So I always root for Milwaukee when occasionally they'll, have that little bounce or breakthrough season, So I got a soft spot in my heart for the Brewers, especially liking them growing up too.
So they're a hoops team that you kind of rule for. I mean, are you a Toronto guy? Or are you more of a Boston guy?
I'm a Celtics guy, 100%. A couple nights ago, Tatum had 44, and I think Curry had 47. So it's NBA's tough to watch. It's strange with nobody in the crowd.
Not Michael Jordan anymore. You know what I mean?
No Jordan. No. I don't like the
threes. We didn't say you're a LeBron over a Jordan guy because we would just hang up on you now, Beau. I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm a Jordan guy. Are you kidding me? I'll get in fist fights over that argument all day.
LeBron. I can't stand LeBron. He just whines all the time.
Oh, he's like, that's his thing.
Yeah.
What? Like, what? Me? I'm like, yeah, you just fouled her. You took 4 steps.
He ran.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
He's just,
reminds me of,
I can't stand that guy.
Oh.
He reminds me of the third little pig, the wolf just blew him over and shit was all over because, the house made of straw. It's just like the straw body with him,
Yeah, and people say, oh, well, he's done it with different teams. I'm like, well, he had to go to ready-made teams to win. To start,
And you're calling hand-picking guys to go to your organization.
You're like, I'll go play with 2 Hall of Famers, Bosh and Wade, and then still get beat by the Mavericks. It's like, get out of here with that stuff, man.
Can you imagine Michael Jordan calling in like a Dirk Nowitzki, calling in a Larry Bird and somebody else, like a Hakeem Olajuwon all together on a team. I mean, obviously they would win every year. Look at the USA men's basketball team. I mean, basically, if you would have picked Jordan's all-star team like LeBron has, that's his freaking all-star team, man.
That's his all-star team. Close. The 92 Dream Team is the greatest sports athletic team across the board of all time. And those are the guys that Jordan played with. And they played defense back then. They didn't just bring the ball down and jack it up from 25, 80 times a game,
And those practices were more intense, they said, than the Bulls practices. I mean, he was lighting dudes up. I mean, they were hardcore competitive, told the coaches, stay the hell off the court and play.
And I don't want to upset the Wisconsin fan base here, but this is a thing about, I compare to Brady too. He's a maniacal guy. He's psycho, and he doesn't have the talent he's very talented. I think he's underrated talent. He's got a great arm, and he doesn't get credit for it. But he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers' talent. I mean, that's obvious. He can't run and throw like nobody can. But he's maniacal, and he's brilliant, and he's a genius. And he gets guys to buy into what he's doing. And that's what makes him.
Well, look at how many off-season violations they had, and they still had no discipline for it. I mean, shit. Let's stay off the field, and then every week.
That's Brady. That's why.
Yeah, you might have a little leeway here or there.
I mean, look at the Tennessee Titans too, though. I mean, shoot, there's another team who I love dearly. That's my AFC team. I love the Titans.
Is it? Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
you look at these guys all the time, even when they're in Green Bay, they're running through walkthroughs, no mask, no this, no that. Gordon busts without him. It's like, dude, at what point do you start to consider it a joke? I mean, if you're going to pay me millions of dollars, I'll take a go. I mean, I'll lock myself in the house. We talked to
Absolutely.
One of the Packers defensive linemen lives literally right across, and we had the interview with him, Tyler Lancaster, and he goes, "Hey, I'm waving to you because we can't be anywhere near each other right now." Like,
Yeah.
you take it very seriously, and you get other guys that are running the dogs up the neighborhood, grilling out together. You know, it's just
Well, it's kind of giving the middle finger to the public when you do that kind of stuff too. You know, it's like I'm better than you or I'm above you, and it turns people off. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. But
so Beau, I don't mean to get political here, but I'm curious to your stance, having been in the system. The great debate on the vaccine for, you know, prisoners were supposed to be told, hey, you're going to get it above people that, you know, maybe have an illness that are of younger age or aren't elderly. You know, what was your kind of take on the whole vaccine method rollout that they had this year?
as far as guys in prison or
yeah, like when people got data of, you know, guys in prison with like a triple life sentence are getting it over the 65-year-old grandma who, you know, is on the church board and this and that, you know.
Yeah. No, great question. I'm happy to answer it. First of all, you know, I'm not a bleeding heart left wing or right. I'm kind of moderate, you know, in my political views. So I don't, you know, there needs to be prison reform, and that's for a whole different topic of what you're asking. But absolutely, they should not get it before somebody who's a civilian who's living a life who hasn't done anything to be punished and is 65 or older. Absolutely. I mean, it's asinine. But the political correctness has pushed things so vastly to one side or the other that it's like, oh, we need to go take care of these prisoners. Like, what does a guy who's doing life, never getting out, need a vaccine, you know, as opposed to, you know, Grandma Johnson down the road who's 62 and has a lot of living to do, but is highly susceptible or at risk, you know, and so I'm with you on that one.
And the reason I asked last semester being in an ethics class, that was one of the things that when we, because obviously hot topic debates, things like that in classes, that was one of the things that unless I was in an ethics class, it wasn't talked about. There was no, you know, obviously the mainstream media is not going to talk about that and cause mass chaos there. They'd rather talk about the shootings, this, that, the other. You know, which is what it is. But at the same time, I mean, I figured that would be a big thing they maybe would have brought up. It was like, hey, how do you guys feel about this when prisoners, you know, like you said, 8 life sentences consecutively that are, you know, getting it above, you know, or if you had to pick between the guy that sexually assaulted your kid and your kid, well, that's not morally right. Well, sorry, I'm going to not volunteer the rapist, you know.
Don't even get me started on that one with those guys. Those guys are the worst of the worst. And there's guys that belong in there, and they belong to be in there for the rest of their life. They never see the light of day. But there's a lot of guys who don't also, kind of like I've explained to you. So there's some really bad people that deserve to be in there, and they don't deserve the vaccination. Are you kidding me? Over somebody who they're in there because they did some heinous stuff. And that's what corrections are for. Absolutely. But for me to be a hypocrite and sit up here and say everybody in prison deserves that stuff is wrong, because everybody in prison, I'm walking proof of it. I've made mistakes, and you know, the mainstream media is going to put their narrative out there. That's how it is. You know, they're told from above what to say, and then they just repeat what they're told. And then the thought police will get you if you speak out of line.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's fun to have shows like this, Beau, and that's why we love doing what we do with guests like you every single week. That's just, hey, man, let's just let it all out there, say what you guys think. I mean, everyone gets an opinion. You know, we've had the guys on talking about their stance on, you know, Black Lives Matter, social injustice, things like that. I mean, hey, what better platform? You don't have to worry about PC, this, that, whatever. I mean,
and it's a fine line to walk. You know, I mean, it's nuanced. Everything is layered. You know, and there's a lot to this stuff, but I think a lot of personal responsibility has to eventually start coming into play in this country for us to get it turned around. So make of that what you will. You know what I mean?
All right, so we're going to finish up here. NFC and AFC favorites for the NFL this year. Who are we going with, Beau?
Oh, man, you guys are going to kill me. Can I say who I think is going to be in the NFC title game, or do I got to give you an NFC?
Go with that.
I think it's going to be a rematch.
Yeah.
Bucks and Pack.
Very good option. I think so,
yeah,
too.
I think that's kind of chalk. I think that's not really going out on a limb, so I apologize. Nothing sexy on that pick. I think they're the two best quarterbacks in the NFC still, Brady and Rodgers. Rodgers, Brady, whatever. Flip them up. It doesn't matter. Two best teams, too. The draft is going to be really interesting to see which way both teams go. I think you all probably need a receiver again. And
lineman, a linebacker.
And all the
linemen for sure, yes.
AFC, it's how do you go against the Chiefs? It's, I'd like to see I don't even know who's a sexy pick. Buffalo, maybe. I'd love to see Buffalo, even though
Buffalo,
I couldn't stand them for years because I'm a Pats fan. I think my team is still a year or two away without a quarterback, and Cam's not the guy. In my personal opinion, Justin Fields, maybe. I'd love to have
Fields or Jones.
I think Jones will be off the board at 3. I would love to have Mac Jones because I think he kind of fits that system. He's cerebral and he doesn't need to be real athletic. It's Trey Lance or Mac Jones, or don't be surprised if Garoppolo ends up there next year.
I think so too.
Yeah, that's actually my prediction is that Jimmy G becomes the Pats QB either this year or next year.
And even if the Rodgers, I think I could see him going to San Francisco.
Say that again, Jeff. I didn't hear you.
If Rodgers ended up getting traded or whatever, I could see that happening. Garoppolo to New England and Rodgers to San Francisco, just because Rodgers has a close relationship with Shanahan and all that too.
And he's a Bay Area guy
from California too.
From Cal, yeah. He went to Cal. They went to Butte College.
He's going warm weather. There's no doubt. He's not going to go.
Yeah. It's like Tom. Yeah.
He's definitely not going to pull the Brett Favre going to Minnesota BS that he pulled. No way.
And he went to New York and then Minnesota. That's a middle finger to Green Bay fans.
Yeah.
That was rough.
We didn't like him.
That had to be a serious kick in the nuts, man. So.
All right. So who's your Super Bowl champ then?
I got Tampa Bay repeating. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Got to be honest with you.
Yeah. They can't lose another title game.
Look, man. If they brought back everybody, that's the thing, or almost everybody, and it's just like, and another year.
There's always injuries. No,
Super Bowl. I got Tampa Bay repeating. The last guy to repeat was Brady, so he knows how to do it. And but I wouldn't be surprised to see Green Bay there. I just think Aaron needs to step up in the playoffs. I think, how do you knock Aaron Rodgers? First ballot Hall of Famer, maybe a top 5 guy that ever played the game. But I think that there's a few things he may could do a little better come big games. And that's not a knock on him. Obviously, I'm just a guy, but this is my opinion. I think he should have ran that ball in against the Bucs.
Yeah, we all.
I think everybody does. I think he got timid. I don't know what happened. I think he kind of what should I do? And
I don't know. I think you saw our video we had posted, Beau. I think you were one of the likes on there about that video I posted during the NFC Championship game of the referee hugging the guys from Tampa Bay before the game.
Yeah, that was Evan's cousin.
Well, I'm not even a Tampa Bay fan, So I'm a Brady fan, but I don't root for the Bucs because there was some Homer stuff going on with the Bucs. I admit, and I don't root for the Bucs because I never have, But Tom's my guy, and Tom's my favorite athlete of all time, and athlete. but
on that one, but we'll let you have.
No, I will never. Yeah, he's my favorite, but Jordan I think is the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. And I hate when people throw the GOAT word out to everybody. It's like, give me a break, man.
Whole different era, too. It's always tough to judge. How do you go against Wilt with 100 points in a freaking game, How amazing can you be shooting to score 100 in a game? Guys score 50 or 70 now. We had Kobe, 75 in a game, and we all went nuts. But to imagine 25 more points when he was already shooting lights out,
Yeah, so it's hard. To me, Jordan's the greatest. And he'll always will be, but it's difficult to compare eras, For sure.
All right, well, we're gonna cut you off there. Just
all right, man.
Keep it too long, but I want to thank you again for taking your time out of your day and joining Jeff and I. It's been awesome, man. I want to thank you firsthand on behalf of our listeners, myself and Jeff, for sharing your story a little bit, giving people hope, and letting you know that it's never as bad as you think it is, and there's always a way out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say one real quick thing, guys. First of all, nice to meet you, Jeff and MD. It's been great. I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. Just the platform to. I just want to tell folks that aside from the sports stuff, if you're having problems with addiction and alcoholism, you're not the only ones out there, and there's help out there, and just ask for it, and people will love you and welcome you with open arms, and life does get better. And just keep pushing and keep grinding and keep praying, and it's going to be just fine, and you'll pull out of it. So yeah, I just want to leave it with that, and I appreciate it so much, guys, for having me on, man. It's been a blast. So
sure. And Beau, if people want to reach out to you directly, where can we send them, or where should they go?
They can hit me at Facebook, Beau Payne at Facebook. They can direct message me. They can send me. You can post on my. You can get a hold of me that way. My email is BoCephas1234 at yahoo.com, and that's like Hank Jr., Beau Cephas, BOCEPHUS 1234. Email me, direct message me. I'm on Instagram. It's at SoberBeau, SOBERBEAU. And I always take time for anybody who needs to talk, listen, needs a helping hand, man. I got time for you. Absolutely.
Awesome stuff. Everybody listening next week, funny man and national stand-up comedian with 2 Netflix specials, Brad Williams, is joining Jeff and I on the show. So we hope you guys can tune in next week. If you're not already subscribed to us on your local source for podcasts, make sure you do so you can follow along with stories just like Beau's. So on behalf of myself, MD Lovelace,
Jeff Price,
I want to thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.